The first thing I do is decide what colors I'm going to use. So on the right side, we're doing an analogous color scheme for both of these. I chose red violet, red, and red orange for the right side. Right now you can see me creating organic shapes by smushing my brush, and I'm using a light wash of red. I'm leaving some areas completely white though, because these are going to be the highlights on my clouds. I'm going to do the same thing on the right side, again leaving some white areas open, again smushing my brush around using a really light value, gradually adding a little bit more of that color, which creates some darker values in areas, again keeping my brush very smushing it, so like pushing it against the paper, not really like swiping it left to right, kind of just moving it around, creating more of that feathery technique. Some edges where like my highlights are more of a hard edge, whereas other edges are softer because they're blending together smoother like clouds. Now I'm going in, just adding in more color, again darkening some values, really trying to show contrast against the edges that are the highlights, because this contrast will actually add more depth in our paintings. So I primarily just used red and a little bit of red orange on the right side so far. Right now I'm actually creating a very light mixture of red violet that I want to add throughout my lighter areas, really kind of like just blotting my brush in areas, letting my colors bleed together to show some different value change within my clouds. Doing the same thing on the left side, I created a blue violet that I'm starting to show contrast in some areas, trying to again push that depth, feathering out in some areas to create those soft edges, and also showing those hard edges where I want to create contrast in my clouds. Where I am adding that depth, I will continue to build up my values darker in that area to continue to show it going back into space. And really, we're just going to continue this process until our values get to the point where we just like how it looks. So it will be kind of different for everyone. If you think like this right here is a perfect stopping point, then it could be for you if you want lighter values in your clouds. I personally wanted to make it a little bit darker, and I haven't really been using much of my violet yet, so I'll be going in with that soon, but I'm right now still kind of building up my blue and my blue violet to show more depth and more saturation in my clouds. I do the same thing on my red violet side, where you can see me now adding in more of my red violet. Again, I'm not trying to get too dark too quickly. Personally, I think it's better for your painting and the paper not to use a lot of water or even a lot of color too quickly, letting these layers build up gradually. This way then you can see all the pretty values showing through. This truly adds more depth within your paintings. Now what if you get too dark too fast? Well, what you can do is you can go back in with a paper towel like you see me doing now, and you can lift up some of that color, again to kind of bring back in some of your lighter values that you might have lost if you got too dark too quickly. Sometimes, like right now with my purple, sometimes I get too dark too fast with purple, but right there I was able to feather it out. Again, you can use that paper towel technique as well, or you can clean your brush off like I just did with this purple side, and I'm using my clean brush to feather out and create some organic shapes happening in my clouds and just letting colors bleed together. Continue to watch this process to see how my clouds unfold, and then at the end we'll go over our notes together. After I let my layers dry, I removed my tape, and now you can see I am labeling my right side. So both sides are an analogous color scheme. The one on the left, I used blue, blue-violet, and violet. Blue-violet is also known as indigo. On the right side, I used red-violet, red, and red-orange. So my techniques that I did, I smushed my brush to create that fluffy cloud texture, but I also showed contrast, so that light against dark edge, to show more depth within my painting. That light edge is the highlight where we left our paper white. We also let our colors bleed together to create more soft edges, which you can see that I labeled, versus my hard edges, which was that contrast. What I highly recommend with watercolor is just to let the water do what the water wants to do. Let it flow. Let go of the control and just let things kind of happen and see how your clouds unfold. Now that you've learned how to create layers, build up values, and create different types of clouds, whether it be more softer edge clouds like in our galaxy scene, or creating more contrasted, harder edges clouds like the ones we just did to show more detail, we're going to apply all these things to our final painting, and we're going to learn how to create a sunset scene with a water reflection.